So I would like to begin by acknowledging the country on which we are all meeting today and pay my respect to elders past and present. These lands on which we are all meeting have always been lands of teaching, learning, and discovery. And I want to acknowledge any First Nations students who are joining us in the room today. My name is Ali Jacque. I'm the Director of Support for Learning at UniSQ. You don't usually see a lot of me. I usually stay in the background of SVA, but I've been with SVA since its inception, and it's been really wonderful over the last couple of months to be on the interim coordination team with Lisa Connolly, who's with us today as well. Um, we actually do have a new coordinator starting next week, and it's a very exciting announcement that I'll make. But we'll just have to wait for that. It's my great pleasure to introduce this session today of the Students Network and the wonderful panel. This session is actually it's to provide a jumping off point from the session we had last year at the Student Summit. So Jimmy Bershaw talked about, being a student leader and the critical challenges of being a student leader. So today we wanted to bring the student voice more fully into the room, and we wanted to continue building our leadership toolkits and our partnership toolkits to share ideas about how we approach challenges and what we've learned along the way that might be useful for someone else. To lead the discussion today, we have Lisa Connolly. Lisa's a student at UniSQ that as I said, have been lucky enough to partner with. She's a teacher and researcher and was the co-chair of the UniSQ Student Senate last year, as well as the Disability and Inclusion Student Rep. So as a neurodiverse person with autism and ADHD, Lisa has issues with imposter syndrome. I mean, girl, same, and perfectionism that lead to burnout at times. So today, Lisa is going to provide some tips and tools for new or returning student leaders to maintain good mental and emotional health. Miles Icon is completing a PhD in psychology at Curtin University in Perth, and he works as an assistant for students as partners at Curtin Uni. He's served in various student support roles, including residential advisor, student mentor, tutor, and volunteer. Um, Miles grew up in low socioeconomic rural areas of Queensland and WA, and so he hopes to bring this unique perspective to improving tertiary student experiences. And last but not least, Shay Rittles is a trans student and activist who focuses on LGBTI QA plus rights and inclusion. And they are currently the Flinders University Queer Collective president and the FUSA Queer officer. Um, Shay centers their work around community building and aid and bringing members of the trans community to the forefront of discussion. In sharing their experience, they hope to show you how to build and mobilize communities and lean on others for help. So it's a really great panel. I've really enjoyed meeting each of our panelists today, but I'm going to leave the chat now just so that we can keep this a very student-led space. I was just here to do the welcome. Um, but I will say that some of you in the room may be new to leadership. Some will be more experienced, but I really want you all to remember that you all have unique insights and something to share and something new to learn. So I'm really interested in what comes out of this session in terms of what SVA can do to support you to develop your toolkits. So, Lisa, you're in charge now. I'm going to hand the baton over to you, and you're also our first speaker. So, the structure is your panelists will talk for about 5 minutes, and then we want to have a bit of a discussion from everyone in the room to share their thoughts and ideas. So, on that note,
Gladly.
Lisa,
Thank you
see you
very much.
later.
So I've got sort of the dual job today where I'm sort of making sure the SVA side is working, but also speaking first. So apologies if some technology goes a bit funny. But basically, like Ali pretty much explained. Oh, first of all, I'd like to say that this is being recorded. So if you're not comfortable having your face or your voice in the video, that's completely fine. You can turn your microphone and video off or on as you like and put anything in the chat if you prefer. But I'll be having my camera on, obviously, as I speak. So as Ali introduced me, I'm neurodivergent. I've got physical disabilities, but I don't know if it's because of or as a result of, but I tend to overload myself with a lot of work. And I think a lot of student reps do that as well. I've worked on building my own sort of toolkit to sort of, make myself not have to work so much. So I'm kind of sharing my ideas here, but I also want to hear other people's ideas because I need some support as well. I've actually got my autistic burnout t-shirt on today because just to sort of acknowledge that I go through that sometimes. So first, technology check. I have created a Menti meter. So if people can give that a go, see if it works. I've got the QR code, we've got website there. I've got a couple of questions. And if it doesn't work, we're just going to put it in the chat. People can just speak up if you want. But I'll leave this on the screen for a little bit. But the first question is going to be how long you've been a student representative, because I think that's a good way to sort of figure out where we're placed. Some people might have just started this year, might have just started their term. Some people have done it for a year. This is their second year. Some people might have done it for 5+ years. I don't know. Just going to check the chat. Waiting for presenter. Yeah, okay. So I think that's where we can hopefully start. So let me know if this is actually working. I might have to go on the website to make it work.
I think it's working. I think the polls are coming through.
Yep. Oh, good. It's the first time I've used Mentimeter actually in a PowerPoint slide. Before I've done it separately. So I went, okay, they said it works. Let's see if it works. So just a little, I just see, ordinarily when I use it on the website, it comes up the results.
Yeah, it's showing the results for me.
Oh, not for me then.
I don't know about everyone else in the room if they're seeing the
Oh, there we go. I just had to
results.
click
There
the
we go.
little person icon. That gives us a little idea. So already some pretty equal amounts of people less than 1 month and then over 2 years. So people just starting and sort of might be all idealistic and yay, everything's great. And I'm going to stress people out by accident. So apologies. I'm just a high strung person. So I might go on to the next one now. I'm pretty sure people can just follow along as we go. But now I can't see what is going on. So this one I wanted to sort of, this is going to be a word cloud. So this is what personal trait or attribute helps you in your role as a student rep. So people are going to have different responses to this depending on how they view student rep, and it's also how you view yourself, I think. So hopefully as well, this Mentimeter is going to be up for a little bit, so people who couldn't attend today can still add to it. And I think it's going to be really valuable to see what people bring. So for me, I'm not going to answer it because I'd have to close different windows, but I think one of my biggest things is empathy. So after I've done this talking bit, I'm going to go back and put mine in, but my attribute that I bring to my role as a student rep is empathy, trying to listen to people and take on their stories, and that can be a positive or a negative sometimes for me. But is there anyone that would like to share their response, not just in the Mentimeter, but either in the chat or on the microphone now?
My responses were responsiveness,
Yeah,
experience, and actually empathy as my last one.
yeah. So I can see some responses already. So communication, yeah. Mediator, yeah. Patience, not sure if I've got that or not. Energetic, I definitely don't have that. I need more energy. Probably need more coffee then. Time management. See, that's an interesting one for me because I am not good at time management. That's the ADHD side of my brain, but my autism side of the brain is works overload trying to make sure that I have good time management. Consistency, progress, ambition. Ooh, that's a controversial one. I think I'm going to say this as a student representative, not as a staff member, but I think some staff would look at that as a tricky one. I agree with it, but it's, yeah, definitely one that I saw one pop up, Ritalin. Okay, I don't have that one. I have a different one. But is there anyone else that would like to share before we move on? I just thought this gives a good snapshot of what people think student rep roles really are. Okay. So this one is sort of, my approach is always self-care, which I struggle with. So this one on Mentimeter I actually haven't used before, so I don't know how it goes. So let me know. If it doesn't work, we'll just skip this one. But it's basically, I look at student rep roles as, we're students first, and then we've got personal lives, we've got our studies, family, social rep roles, which take hours. We've got to look after ourselves too. Got to look after the house. So I just wanted to sort of see where people spend most of their time. So I think that says a lot about how we're actually looking after ourselves and prioritizing ourselves. So I think it looked pretty fair at the moment. Studies. I mean, we're student representatives, right? We should be studying. We want to pass. I'm pleasantly surprised so far. So I'll say that I had a little bit of a research bias coming into this. I was fully expecting myself to be put at the bottom, and it's not. So is there anyone that would like to discuss how they put the hours in this way? So we've got studies, number one, then the student rep role, then work, then yourself, then chores, household, I just sort of thought anything like that. And then social life, way down the bottom, which is, self-care. So I think it's very interesting.
Can I include in that? When we're in
Yeah,
Brisbane, we encourage our students that their studies come first. They have to come first. And then you've got your family, your work, whatever order that comes in for you, and your student rep role drops a little bit lower than that.
yeah,
Obviously, self-care is up there as well. So just so that those students that are here from Brisbane, we don't want you making your student rep role number two, because your studies definitely come first, and your families and your work and other things that you have in your life. Like we're down the food chain a bit. So I wanted to just reiterate that.
yeah. it's a tricky balance, and I think that's where a lot of like my autistic burnout comes from, is trying to balance these. So this one's a bit of a fun one. This one's a little bit of a scale, because Ali didn't mention, but I'm a bit of a career student. My first degree was a Bachelor of Education, so I'm a teacher. That's why I thought I'll speak first, because I'm used to talking to an empty room. Well, usually 8-year-olds not paying attention. But after that, I did a Master of Education in Guidance and Counselling, so I'm all about the emotions and regulation and all of that. So I just wanted to sort of see, how are you feeling? A bit of a check-in. When I have the primary school kids, it's usually they have 5 fingers and you go, okay, how are you feeling 1 to 5? 5 means they're excellent, 1 means terrible, worst day of my life. But we're a bit older, we can do a bit more than that. Hopefully, fingers crossed. This is really interesting, because this is going on a bit of a average. So positive and negative are pretty close. Complexities of humanity. And I promise I'll stop with the actual, scientific science in the next slide. But I put those 2 slides together for a reason. And I think I've frozen a bit. So I'll just wait. There we go. So, I mean, you probably could already tell, but when you've got your studies, you've got work, putting most of your time into that, you're probably going to have a lot of stress and a lot of workload that's just taking too much of your time. That I wanted you to sort of think about those 2 slides. So is there anyone that wants to sort of talk about that at all? Like your experiences of how much effort you put into certain things and how that impacts you personally?
I'm happy to. I find
Thanks.
that I'm a very extroverted person. I find that being around people makes me very happy. And so I feel like me putting my social life quite high means that even in times where I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed and kind of feeling a lot of anger or sadness from things happening, the fact that I put my social life quite high and make sure I'm connected to people means that I'm also at the same time feeling happy, feeling at peace, feeling connected.
That's great to hear. And so you sort of as a student rep, you get to use that, extrovert, needing that social life, so it brings you that happiness. Which I imagine there aren't many student reps that would become a student rep if they didn't like it in some way. But it's really good that you can prioritize that. Is there anyone that would like to put something in chat if they're not comfortable being on screen about how they sort of balance those things and how it makes them feel?
I'm happy to speak a little bit on that. I think that recent cyclone that came made me realize that I need to focus on myself first.
Yeah.
I need to be complete in order to be able to allocate time and energy to all of these things, because we all have very, very busy lives. And if we can't do 100%, then things just start to fail. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. It's some small benefit to a big life stress that you sort of evaluate things a bit differently. Cool. So now I'm going to do the bit where we all share our practicing self-care. So, self-care is important, because if we have no energy, we can't do what we are expected to do. And that's even as simple as brushing your hair and brushing your teeth some days. I get that, where you need to do some things. And if all your energy is put into other things and not yourself, it's going to get to that point where it's too much. So this is my mind map. You don't have to look at all of it, but this is what I did for myself. This is what's in my brain as of this morning. All of these thoughts, these are stresses. I don't think there was a single positive thing here, but I was just going, okay, this is what I struggle with. How am I going to try and still, like, I'm here today as this SVA student partner, a paid job. I could easily just curl up in a ball and not have turned up, but I had to be here. It's my job. So it's a bit of a, I'm sure everyone's got their own list of things that they've got to do. And sometimes it's going to the shops and getting groceries and cooking dinner and doing basic things. So just another sharing thing. It doesn't have to be real personal or something like that, but I want everyone to sort of think of something you did just for yourself this week. I sort of put this week because I want it to be sort of close, but something that wasn't because you had to do it or you were doing it for someone else's benefit or something that was just for you. So cooked my favorite meal. I love that because I'll be honest, I did the opposite for myself last night. I ordered pizza because I was just done. Retail therapy. I'm a bit guilty of that. Listen to music on the bus. See, that's a good one because you're already on the bus because you have to get somewhere. So listen to music so that you're like, took a day off to sleep. Oh, that sounds good. I think I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. A liter of my favorite ice cream. I'm very jealous of that. Walked in nature, singing a choir. Oh, I like the first part. I'm not going to attempt the second part. Made sure to eat good food this week. Intuitive eating. Yeah, that's definitely one that's tricky for some people. Nature walk. Worked on my battle jacket. New band patches and made more studs. Okay, that sounds really cool. I like the idea of battle jacket. Started to say no more. Yeah, see, that's something I need to work on, I think. So if anyone has strategies for that, I would love to know that. So this is where I'm sort of getting to. Also, as part of this, I'm going to have, there is a folder on OneDrive that I've created that I'm going to make available on the website and everyone that's attended today has access to. I'm putting these in there. It's basically why you need to have self-care. So I'm not going to go into a whole lesson of it, but basically it goes in different categories. It will be different for everyone. Like mental self-care is something I need to work on. Like I need it for myself, but spiritual self-care is, you know, a bit more difficult for me and not as personal to me. So I sort of, you pick and choose what you really need. So this is where I want us to have a good discussion. So looking after yourself, taking time for yourself, you can put this in the Mentimeter. You can put it in the chat. You can speak up now, but this is the part where we're really trying to build that toolkit for each other. So if there's something that you've done that you found really helpful for you that you think other student reps should know about, what are some different strategies you think? I noticed on the last slide there was a couple of nature walks. So, you know, getting close to nature. See, that's that physical. I wonder if that's spiritual. I think that's a bit spiritual in some ways. So taking time to do things that's self-care. So again, feel free to join in with your microphone if you want to add something.
I was going to add to the walking. I like to keep a track around whatever campus people are on, but it's actually really nice to go for a walk around campus sometimes, and because we're here for a few years, and it's a good opportunity to see almost how the seasons change on campus as well. Like at the moment, all the leaves will start falling off the trees at Curtin, and it's just a nice excuse to be present, to go for a walk, a bit of a nature urban walk, and just appreciate the campus that we're on as well.
Yeah, and it really works with that student rep role. You can say, no, I'm doing this as, as part of this, but it's also for me just to get some fresh air. So make time for what makes your heart happy, whatever that may be. Allowing yourself to say more, standing around, letting things go, worrying less about what others think about things you cannot change. So enjoy a hobby, yeah. Connect with friends. I'm guessing, yeah. I have the bits on the screen, so I have to keep moving things, but connecting with friends. See, I think everyone needs to take that, because social time was way at the bottom of that list. Eat whatever food you want without worrying about the consequences. See, that's where part of my struggle is, that I have some health problems that sometimes I go, I gotta eat whatever food I want because I just want to, and then, oh, I'm sick now. Just gonna check anything more.
I was going to add too that sometimes, especially probably for us student reps, sometimes self-care I think can look like doing study or doing your assignments over like your rep role as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can feel like a bit of a pull towards the rep roles and work roles, but we are students first, and so it is important. I kind of see it as a form of self-care to put that stuff first at times as well.
It
But
can be.
that also, it comes second after doing like the socializing and looking after yourself, I think.
Yeah. See, I'm not particularly sharing mine at the moment because I've got a sort of resource that I'm going to share next. So I'm not chiming in with my strategies yet, but I think having some sort of idea is just a good starting point. Like just a couple of like really quick things. If you just make a list, that way when you're like, okay, I'm feeling burnt out, here's a list of things that I can quickly try this and see if it makes me feel better. But it doesn't always have to, doesn't always have to be really in-depth things like a full therapy. Yeah, Caroline?
I just put in the chat rose thorn bud. So this is a technique that I use with my kids. So it's a form of gratitude. So the rose is finding something that you are really grateful for in the day. The thorn is acknowledging that, you know, things don't always go to plan and some things can be really not nice, and that's okay. That's life. And then finishing with the bud is something that you're looking forward to the next day. So it's a kind of end of day gratitude sort of ritual.
That's really good. I haven't heard of that one before, which someone who is all in the therapy and teaching, that's good. I think I might use that going forward, actually. Because there's also, as a teacher, there's 2 stars and a wish. When you're giving feedback to another student, you say 2 things I liked, but one thing you could improve. So I might go on to this bit. So this is my example. This is my last bit that I'm going to talk on, and then it's going to Miles, so prepare yourself, Miles. But the one on the left is one that I found online. Really simple, like just having that printed out or on your phone or something around the house. Okay, here's some ideas. I probably wouldn't use all of them, but just good examples. You just Google it, you can find lots of ideas, and it's always bingo, so try and tick them off. And I find also, if you do a bingo card for yourself, give yourself a reward at the end. All about that, you know, achievement. If you put 3 things down to look after yourself for a day, like making sure I drink 2 liters of water and eat a piece of fruit and don't have too many cups of coffee or whatever. And then at the end of the day, if you did it right, you get to have a treat of some form. The one on the right is one that I actually made myself. So I'll give you the blank resource, but this is how I have it printed on the wall right in front of me right now. I've got cost on either end, low cost, high cost, and then time. So low amount of time, high amount of time. So if I'm feeling like, okay, I just need a quick, cheap way to make myself feel better, I might just put a scented candle on and just sit for 5 minutes and enjoy something an enjoyable smell. But something that might have more time and more money for is the therapy session, because this costs a couple $100 now, and you have to book it, and it may be a few weeks in advance, and then it takes an hour to do it. But it's there as a strategy. So that's my sort of final advice, is building your own toolkit of self-care strategies, of just a couple of things, 2, 3, however you need. Just when you're feeling low, quickly find something and make sure you got your energy back up. So Miles, I didn't have any slides for anyone else, so I don't know if you want me to share or you want to share.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna speak for a little bit. Maybe I'll do a little just further intro about myself, and then had a few thoughts while we were going through all of that as well. So yeah, as mentioned at the start, I grew up in the country parts of Queensland and WA, and moved to the city over here in Perth for university. And so really had to kind of learn how to be a student as well as learn how to live in a city. And that came with its own challenges, but I think it came with its own benefits looking back as well. And probably things that have played really well into being a student rep or becoming a student rep in my roles. Like, I find that a lot of the times that I've been student rep, it's been having grown up in the country and having it be really easy to approach people and be really easy to talk to people. I came to Perth and didn't realize that the kind of norms when you're living in the city is that people don't just like go up and talk to each other around campus or on the street. And so I would just go up and talk to people around campus and get to know other students, and you kind of hear about different opportunities and different ways to represent students there. You learn about a broad set of students, go up and talk to teachers and staff as well. But yeah, and I've had to build up a kind of community around university, and that has really been, I think Jimmy talked about it in one of his points in the keynote, is about just doing and acting and like being involved in things. I always talked about with my family and friends of like putting your hands out in lots of directions and being involved in things. And that has always been really good as a student rep, but we all probably run into the challenge as well of taking on too many things. So it is a balance between putting your hand out and taking the opportunities and balancing that with not taking on too much and still prioritizing us. And we talked a lot about self-care. I think gratitude practices are really good. The rose, thorn, bud, Caroline, I really love that one. I'm going to take that as well. But I think there's lots of opportunities in our day and in our roles to take the time and be grateful for the opportunities that we have and that we're studying at university. I think growing up in the country, university can seem like this really far off thing that's like a dream and unachievable thing to get to. So it's always a good reminder to I find it helpful just to think, we're at university, we're at a place where we're learning, we're students. This is a really great opportunity in itself. And the rep roles and leadership opportunities that come from it as well. And so that always, I think those gratitude practices can really energize. And there's a saying, like I studied psychology, and there's a saying that floats around. I don't know where I first heard of it, but the saying is you can't pour from an empty cup. And so all those self-care practices and that is actually what gives us the energy and what we can pour from in our student rep roles and in our work roles. And it's always a nice little easy reminder that you can't pour from an empty cup, and go out and do those things that might be low cost, low time, or low time, high cost. I really like that diagram, having all the different strategies mapped out that you can use at different times. But yeah, I was really happy to see at the start of the Mentimeter, a lot of the people in the room have only just recently started student rep roles, this like maybe the last few months or a year ago. And that made me very happy because I've only really formally started in a student rep role in the last few months or the last half a year. And so it's a learning process for me still at the moment as well, learning how to be a student rep, how to kind of bring yourself to our rep roles, our leadership roles. So I'm very much in the same boat as it seems like a few people in the room. And it's nice to have the more experienced people in the room as well who've been doing it for a while. But yeah, that's pretty much, I think, all I was going to really say, and then just kind of open up to questions later. But yeah, maybe I'll throw some questions out at the end if Shay wants to do intro.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Shay, and essentially, I'll tell you a bit about myself and what I do. I'm the LGBTQ representative on my student council. I run a few LGBTQ groups on campus, and essentially, the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about is how to actually engage with people. Because I feel like for me, the biggest challenge coming into things is that I came in, I had a lot of ideas that I thought were good, but then people weren't necessarily engaging with. And so kind of talking about how to reframe what you do, how you interact with people, how you interact with your community, to number one, find what people actually want from you, and number two, how to engage them with what you can offer. So my biggest skills that I have to tell people is that you have to make yourself accessible and available to other students. I feel like a lot of the times we think, oh, I'm a student representative. People can just come to me if they want something from me. But I find that people just don't. If I leave things be, if I don't introduce myself to people, I will be in a position that I am just isolated as a student representative. And I don't get anything from the people who I'm meant to be representing. So my first tip is to engage with the community that you are representing. Do the same as what Miles said. Go up to them, talk to them, introduce yourself, and more than just introducing yourself, ask what you can do for them. I think the next thing as well in engaging students is the fact that you might want to introduce yourself in a way that is fun, or introduce what you do in a way that is fun. You know, I feel like students are very busy. We have a lot going on. We have studies, we have work, we have friends, we have family, we've got 1,000 different things. And so I feel like a lot of the time we don't necessarily engage with the resources that we have available to us unless it's worthwhile. And one of those things is just fun. So I found that something that helped me a lot with engaging with students is actually introducing myself through social events, creating social events that were really easily accessible physically, and then going to my university and asking them to please advertise in any way that they can as far in advance as possible and as frequently as possible to kind of get my face out there, get students to know that I exist, and also get them to realize that engaging with their community at university is something that is worthwhile. And then my other thing that I will say, which is a big tip I have for people, especially people who are starting out as a student rep again can be quite isolating, and you can feel like you don't know what you're doing. I feel that when I went into this, I think 3 years ago now, I had no idea what existed at my university. I had no idea who did what, and I had no idea how to achieve the ideas and goals that I had once I've engaged with my community. And my tip is don't be afraid of being annoying and asking for help, because I feel like everyone needs help. And I feel like I don't reach out for help because I'm afraid of annoying somebody who's higher up than me, or taking up somebody's time, or being a nuisance, or asking a silly question and looking dumb. But I feel like, I don't know, I would actually like to open this up to the room and ask, do you like being asked to help other people? If anyone is happy to answer that. Either pop in the chat or...
See, I think of that as, I don't know if it's my background as a teacher, but when someone comes to me and asks for help, it's a good thing, because it's better than you going ahead and putting a lot of extra work into something that already exists, or doing something wrong and then you're having to go back and redo it. So that where you're talking about that, when you're coming in new and you don't know what to do, you might be trying to create something that already exists. So asking questions is probably a good idea to just, okay, who's been here a little while? Have you thought about this? Have you got this already? So I don't know if that's the sort of approach you were going for there.
So I think that is a part of it. And I think another part of it is, I don't know, when I've asked for questions, when I've asked questions, even if it was a silly or stupid question, I've noticed that nobody was mad. People were happy to talk to me. People were happy to explain. I feel like I like to believe that most people aren't mean, or most people have good at heart and good intentions, especially in advocacy and representation roles. So I'm just wanting to kind of remove a bit of fear that people will be upset or annoyed if you ask them for help or ask them questions, because I think most people want to be helpful. Yeah, and absolutely, Caroline, I agree. I feel like I've a lot of the time I felt like I couldn't ask something, and then somebody else asked it, and I was like, thank God.
I was going to add, I can't remember who said it to me, but someone reframed it as well of often when we get asked questions, like we said, like we're really happy to help, and it's actually a really enjoyable part of our role. And someone reframed as like, if we were reaching out asking for questions, it's kind of like you're giving the person the opportunity, like they get to feel that way because they often would be more than happy to help, and so they get to feel really nice about it. So it's kind of like asking questions and asking for help is actually kind of a really nice thing, because you give someone the opportunity to help, which I found a very helpful way to reframe asking questions as well.
Oh, and I'm seeing something here from Bailey actually, which is on essentially finding a place to place knowledge, which is something really important actually, where I'm just wanting actually to open that up a bit to essentially ask everybody, does anyone who maybe has a bit more experience with being a student rep or has been around for a while, how do you go about handover and making sure that your knowledge is kind of passed on? And yeah, I'll just give a minute for the chat, and then if in a minute I don't see anything, I can share what my university does. Yeah. Because my biggest tip for this, write things down. Stress home the point if you can, or in your self practice, writing down what you've done. Just because every system is different, it's different for every university, and systems change. But having something written is so, so helpful that people can look back on. So to make sure that your knowledge isn't just floating out in word of mouth, because that can get lost. And yes, that was mostly it from me. So I think Miles as well was saying if anybody has any questions or wants to talk to the group about anything.
This is also a really good chance for me as an SVA person to sort of hear what student reps need as well. Like, especially we've got quite a few people who are new to that position. It's how can SVA help? How can we help each other? Like, Student Network is for students to talk to each other and help each other. So anything that's sort of tricky or something really successful even. Okay, so Roa, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. University of Sydney. So first one, biggest one. So they do it through talks for first years or discussions for mentor leaders and student ambassadors. Have events before any student rep program starts where we give talks and have Q&A sessions. So that is good to have at the start of each term, but it's also tricky. Like, yes, we should all have that. But what about people who leave partway through? I always worry about that. Like, yeah, like certain positions like LGBTQIA plus, you probably have particular contacts in different communities. So those are ones that you've personally developed that when you leave, if you suddenly have to leave or for whatever reason, someone else comes into it, those contacts are lost almost. So do you have any sort of ideas around how that would happen?
I can talk specifically from like an LGBTQ perspective about what we've done.
Yeah, I think you're really big in that community and that's your strength. So that's really good to hear from.
So, and I think it would be in a lot of communities that are more based around identities and about a subject or a topic.
Yeah.
But again, it's going to kind of leaving things written down. We have created a massive drive where we put down every single document. And one of those documents, we put down people's contact numbers, people's emails, what their positions are, what they do, and how we've worked with them in the past. Mm-hmm. So that future leaders stepping in knows that that person exists.
Yeah, it's really good, especially that part about what you've actually done with them. I think that's, you sort of get an idea of how you can help each other in the future as well. Some people might be good at one thing but not another. So
yeah,
since stress, that's good.
Because networks can be so important. You're almost like passing along the network to the next reps as well. That's really good.
Yeah. So an interface with someone to understand the student leader role a bit more. I feel like I have a lot to offer as a second diploma student. Oh, another career student. All of the degrees. Yeah, I think that's the tricky thing, that I'm not sure how anyone else actually, how the system works at your university, but like I was in the Student Senate at UniSQ, it was very structured around just monthly meetings where we discuss everything, and we really struggled to keep that continuing engagement between meetings because, you know, like I'm an online student, so it's really hard to connect with students on campus and trying to, you know, get people to talk to you because some people are scared. And like Miles said, walking up to someone in the city, they go, "Who are you? Don't come near me." But it's a bit tricky to try and keep that engagement going sometimes, I find. How did everyone else's, like, how do your roles go at the moment? Like, what are your responsibilities, I suppose, with like meetings or talking to people?
Caroline did have a question in the chat that you might have some insight on, Lisa, about engaging with online students. Is there anything that you can think of being an online student or trying to engage with other online students?
Look, I have ideas, but it's getting them implemented because it all comes down to the institution. And that's probably like talking about, oh, building a toolkit for student reps. We have grand ideas of things that honestly will probably work because it's students coming up with it, but it takes work and effort and money sometimes from the institution. I submitted a proposal to pay student representatives at UniSQ because they're not paid at all. And it was, well, the word wasn't rejected. It was under consideration, but you need to research and contact other universities to see if they pay their student reps. And universities aren't going to tell me anything. I'm a student representative at another university. So it's a bit tricky. That's just an example of, you know, what do I do there? I didn't know what to do. But like online students at my university, I think it's like 70% of students are online, and there's not a lot for them to socially engage. It's all the guild does some events on some campuses, orientation week, they do a couple things. I had ideas like, okay, the guild is running an event. Can we make it hybrid so people can attend over Zoom? You know, if you're having some sort of movie viewing night, they did Shrek recently, I think. Well, why can't people have a thanks, Bailey? I will email you. But yeah, why can't there just be like some sort of Discord chat or Zoom room where online students can watch? People were doing that during lockdowns. They were doing things, watching movies, playing games together online. But when I brought that to the university, they said, well, you'd probably have to come in and run that hybrid system. Like if something's happening in a room, you'll have to set it up so, you know, like a lecture. And I'm going, well, I'm an online student. I can't get to all of the campuses and do that. You need someone on campus willing to do that. So it's definitely like I have ideas for it, but it's really tricky. I don't know how to get those things going.
I have a thing that might work for some universities, which is engaging through clubs. Just because I know, at least in LGBTQ clubs, that we always have very active online communities in things like Discord, where there's then not only events being held online, but also a mostly text-based community. And it's not the university or the student association engaging with students, it's a student club. But maybe seeing if the clubs at your university, any club really, runs something similar, so that maybe then you can also reach out to those online students who are engaged in some way through clubs.
I think another consideration is like, okay, this is my personal experience and my observations, but I would say online students are typically online for a reason, because they're either parents or they work full time, so they can only do their studies at night, so they can't go on campus all day, or like me, they have disabilities, so traveling and being on campus is not a possibility. So trying to engage with people from those groups probably does make it a bit trickier because they're time poor or unwell or don't have the capacity to engage in activities. So I think that's where probably the university looks at it, goes, what's the, return on investment for it?
Regional students as well, a lot of time will be online. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting
I know.
to international students
Yeah,
that in
international.
this country. So yeah, I think we've gone off into a different tangent now, which is fine. It's all good. We're sort of, looking at like a couple of things in the chat about people wanting to know how student reps get paid. So I think that's important. And then online students. So yeah, really got all different ideas of how we approach and take on these roles. I'm going to note something as well from the SVA staff standpoint, that Anna, the previous coordinator, was starting a survey that was going to be sent out to all institutions about if they pay their student reps and how much and all that sort of thing. The reason I'm not fully explaining all of it is because now that Anna's gone to a different position, the whole research ethics side of it may delay this for a while now. So SVA as a organisation is interested in that. They do want to create a piece of work, like a document saying, look, these ones pay their reps and these ones don't, to make a bit of a competition almost. Like, students, universities trying to be the best one in Australia. Looking at the students' quality of life is one indicator. And I think, like, unofficially, we could probably share that as students. We can discuss that amongst ourselves. But yeah, we are working on trying to get some official word on each institution. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Bailey. So Bailey's just sharing an email in the chat. So feel free to email them if you want to know about anything and share your own information. Because Bailey's making a collation. So thank you, Bailey. You're doing all the work for me. But yeah, I think I find myself as a student. I'm going to ask, feel free not to answer if it's a bit personal, but because money is a personal question, but does anyone actually get paid for being a student representative? Because I didn't. Yes? Yeah?
Yes, so I get an honorarium.
Okay.
So I'm a paid volunteer. And yes, so it's something. It's definitely not a wage. It is my university saying thank you through a symbolic sum. It's not a wage, but it's very rare to get that, so I'm very appreciative for it.
Yeah, it's something, and that's because I would also say that's because of the university you go to. Flinders University is really game with students as partners. So
yes, no, Flinders is quite progressive and do come towards students a fair bit.
So yeah, TAFE Queensland unpaid. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah. See, Bailey's mentioning they don't get paid, but with two different groups. So
I think at Flinders as well, if you're on student council, you do get an honorarium, but if you're a topic representative representing your degree or your topic or your course, they don't get paid.
See, that's interesting. I would like to know their reasoning for that. Like,
it's two different people doing.
Yeah, but why would one?
It's in Flinders, it's because we fall under two different bodies, and one body does and one body doesn't.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
I think
Yeah,
the guild reps at Curtin, I think they're paid positions, but then the other rep roles and committee roles around the university, I think currently are unpaid, but I think there's a big push at Curtin to at least get some like reimbursement. It might not be like a contract or a paid position, but they're trying to push out like gift cards and payments to get some sort of payment moving for if you're sitting in on rep sessions, like getting a gift card for sitting in on that, which I think is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I'm sorry, as you were talking, I read the chat and I laughed a little bit. Mine immediately goes to that meme. Wait, you guys are getting paid? Yeah, that's kind of that's oh, what's his name? Get his name now. The one who was in the Marvel movie as well. I can't remember the actor's name. But yeah. I think that sometimes it's a strange system, and SAF funding now where 40% has to go to student-led organisations. That's another thing that's going to be changing things, so it's going to take even longer. So, position on some councils are so huge they have to take the year off their studies to do it.
Wow. Is it if they're taking a year off, are they getting paid for that or both?
Yeah,
Oh,
so, yeah. Well, Bailey doesn't know 100% get paid, I guess. Okay, I've never heard of that sort of thing, that you have a position on a council that you take a whole year off your studies. I don't think I would do that. And the next comment doesn't surprise me. Does someone else want to read that so I'm not talking the whole time?
One uni is, oh, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so I have here that one uni is spending their entire 40% on a sports team. So watch where your staff funding is going.
And no worries to anyone that has to go now because it's after the 1 o'clock. So I know that if some people have classes, feel free. But yeah, I think we're just having a discussion at this point about SAF funding. It's a bit tricky to like. There should be regulations around that as well. Like part of it shouldn't. The whole 40% shouldn't go to a sports team.
Their understanding of it is that because the team is a student-led organisation, technically it passes. But yes, universities do have to put their plans into the government. So whether or not the government says yes at the end of the day is a whole other thing. But apparently that's what they're trying to do. But I don't know which university it is. So I'm saying to everyone, like, just those financials should be online somewhere. So just do some Googling and find out where your SAF funding is going. If not, email the university and ask. That's your money. Like that's your 200 and whatever dollars, 240 something dollars that you pay every year. That's that money. That's your
Bailey,
money. So yeah.
Sorry to interject. Because we both go to Uni SC, could you save me some legwork and just tell me where I can find that?
Not off the top of my head. I know if you Google it for Uni SC, it does come up. If you want to know specifically where our SAF funding is going, with this 40%, this year 20% is going to the Student Guild, next year 30, the year after 40.
Okay.
So we're doing it that way so that we don't go from having our last year it was 9%. So we're over doubling this year. And so obviously we've got to put on more staff. And so we didn't want to like have to quadruple in like practically overnight. So we were, decided to do it that way. But again, the university hasn't put that into the government yet, or if they have, we haven't heard back yet. So we're fairly certain that that'll go through, no worries, but particularly because everyone agrees. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Thank you for that,
But
Bailey.
yeah, a lot of universities are treating that whole 40% thing very differently. So it's a big case of watch this space and just keep an eye on what your universities are doing.
Which is disappointing as a student to think that the institution would just take all that money. We're turning into America with the high school
Disappointing,
football teams.
but is it surprising?
Disappointed but not surprised. Yeah. It's a bit. I would, from my understanding from UniSQ, at the end of each year, they actually publish their annual report of their, like, it encompasses everything. So it would take a lot of reading to find the actual SAF funding, but UniSQ actually had like a big document, and SAF funding was part of that. So I'm not sure if that's the same for every university, but yeah, it is supposed to be on every university's website. Feel free to discuss anything else. We've still got, until 1:30. I'm happy to stay on if anyone has discussion points.
Yeah, it's with me and Joel. We were just talking in chat about people who aren't enrolled in on council or who aren't doing a full load to kind of give time to student council. I mean,
yes, I was just a little bit curious about, comparing some of everyone's experiences and seeing, what sort of workloads they do, what sort of, and if there's any intercrossing as well, collaboration between universities and institutions.
I can talk about my experience unless somebody else wants to jump in, just because I don't want to dominate that. So I feel like I might have done a bit. Okay, I will just say that, what I've done, and I am on my student council, it's less so because of the council position itself, and more so some other things that are happening that tie into my portfolio, which is LGBTQ issues, specifically trans issues. I've actually dropped to part-time of only doing 2 subjects a semester, because I've found that in my life at this point, I've just prioritized trans advocacy over finishing my degree. And I know others on my council who get paid significantly more than me, because some people on council get paid 10 times more than me. I do know that they have a lower workload as well because of how time intensive their council position is.
Thank you very much for that.
I would say experience with UniSQ is we just combined the Student Representative Council and the Student Senate. So I was on the Student Senate previously. And the hours that people had to do, it really depended on the group, because Student Senate, we actually had in our terms of reference, like we wrote it and got it endorsed that you had to be you could get paid work at the university, but it had to be less than your hours as a student. So you could be a part-time student and still hold a position, but like the roles needed for each student rep position widely varied, and that's kind of why I'm in burnout at the moment, because I took on co-chair role last year and that was a lot of hours and not being paid. So it's really not consistent over universities. I would say that from uni to group to group to position, and then how you approach the role yourself. Some people are perfectionists and spend way too much time on it, but yeah. So I think I think broadly you would have to be enrolled as a student in some form for the semester to hold your position as a student representative. but I'm not sure specifically how many hours you would have to be enrolled in. So okay, so Bailey's also sharing that. I'm just going to prioritize one part of it, that, you know, if you have to drop out due to medical reasons, the guild won't kick you out of your position, but student representatives will. See, again, it's that different groups will have different priorities.
Yeah, pretty much. I was co-chair too, though, so that might have been a bit like made a bit of a difference. If you were just part of the group and went along to meetings, they probably wouldn't care so much, but yeah. But just honestly, I was being a pain in the ass, so they were probably trying to get me out anyway.
Okay, Bailey, do you remember what you said at the 2023 symposium on the panel? Your one piece of advice?
Don't be a dick. Yeah, that it was not long after that actually that that all that happened. Yeah, I got a bit of a reputation.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think things have calmed down now, which is nice. But I still get obnoxious at times.
I mean, I think that's another part of that student rep toolkit of, you know, where some people are saying their self-care is learning to say no. Sometimes the self-care is pushing for something. And what is the effect of that?
Mine was definitely that week was needing to say, hey, like I've had enough. This was disability related, specifically, but yeah, just had enough of the ableism and all of the struggles in trying to get through my degree. That I am still very much having, and it's still, yeah. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. But
I don't think it is. I think that's
I guess, yeah, topics differ, but the thing's the same, isn't it? They don't want to change. They're an institution. So it's like, how do you work within that to make change happen and make things better?
Bailey, I actually have a question for you because I'm seeking advice, which is kind of finding a balance between I'm facing some barriers in some things that I'm doing from some teams, things like that, and some other people. And I very much, my go-to strategy, which I'm trying not to do because I fear that it will get me kicked off and then nothing will get done, is generally being obnoxious and pulling people out. How do you balance it?
I'm not very good at that. Okay. I'm probably not the best person to give advice with that. I think it's going to depend on your university and how they do things. So, like I've said, there's two different kind of student areas at our university. We have the Student Guild, and I'm on their board as a board member. And last week now I'm actually vice president for clubs. Don't ask me what that means. I have no idea. And then there's also our student representative. So that is under the university. That's more governance kind of stuff, whereas our student guild is more clubs and that kind of area. So there's a distinction there. Yeah. So depending on, I guess, where you're trying to go and who you're trying to talk to, what I did was, sorry, this is long, but I might explain a few things. The governance area did not have anything specifically for disability. They did for other areas, but not disability. So we made that happen. Then I found that being co-chair of that group, I am Aboriginal and I am autistic. So I'm going to just go to the person I need to go to and have a chat, right? I'm going to have a yarn, say, hey, this is what we need. Institutions don't like that. You have to go up the layers, right? And that's where I've been getting into a bit of trouble. So I'm learning that lesson slowly. With the Student Guild, we've just started a club, disability club, because that doesn't have that institutional stuff going on. So through the club now, we can go straight to the person and say, hey, this is what we need. Can you make that happen? And then the governance group can do things that the way the institution needs them to do it, and we can back them up. We can raise money, they can't. That's another distinction. So we can back them up in ways. They have to play by those rules. And I found that when you don't, and the people who have come after me in that co-chair position are also finding the same, you're just going to get slapped down constantly, right? So the way we're going to try next is this club and see if we can make change happen that way. So it's like, all right, you're going to make us play by the rules. We can do that. But, let's see if we can find some loopholes somewhere and work that. But at the end of the day, I found making relationships with people and saying, hey, do you want to grab lunch today and just have a chat about some stuff? Or, hey, I've got you for 5 minutes. Do you know that the bathroom at the pool is like really bad and that could use some fixing? And next thing I know, it's been fixed. So you just kind of make those relationships and do things that way, kind of under the table if you have to as well. Because, there is something to be said by standing up and being obnoxious, but pick your time and place, probably a little better than I do.
Oh, I am horrible at that. I love to be obnoxious with it.
I did, however, get a little obnoxious at Hertzar last year in front of a whole lot of VCs, so that was awesome. Great. So if you have that opportunity, go right ahead. But with some of the smaller ones, they do tend to get offended. So yeah. Yes. But I think outside the box. We have to keep thinking outside the box and just think of other ways to do stuff.
Which is just giving us more work, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it really is. It's like, why can't you guys just shut up and listen? Yeah, you're right about the work.
I think it's also the difference between some students being student representatives because they just want to be a representative, others going into it because they want to be an advocate. And that's fair enough to be one and not the other. People approach it differently. I would say people that are the representatives for LGBT, QIA+, or disability or First Nations tend to be the more advocate. So we're the ones that are a bit more obnoxious. Whereas other people are just, representing students. I would say a big one is also finding a higher up that is like on your side. So if you're like the disability and inclusion representative, finding someone from that staff who can speak with you is really helpful. It's what I've done in the past, but it's a bit tricky trying to figure out who's actually the good staff member to get.
And come to a lot of things like this. And if you can, any free networking opportunity, any free conferences, that kind of stuff. You're from Flinders?
Yeah.
Yep. I may have a contact there for you if you want to send me an email.
I would love that. I actually put down your email address from earlier. So.
Yeah, it's a VC and we get along very well. So
awesome. Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. We've got to help each other out this way, eh?
Yeah.
But I made that contact by going to a conference and being cheeky. So I find you can get a lot done that way as well.
I think this discussion also just proves we need to have, we have the student network sessions that we have like 4 a year, but we need to have some sort of way to just contact each other throughout, like some advice or something like that. So I think that I'm just giving myself more work.
I think we have Discord up, but I'm not sure anyone's using it per se.
Yeah, I think we could get something functional on the website even to just share or chat. I'll look into that.
Can I just point out too, when I talk about this stuff, I think I should preface it with something like I'm a social work student and I've been advocating my whole life and this is just who I am. So don't I'll say things like go to conferences and like if that's not your thing, don't do it. Like I'm not saying everyone should do that because they shouldn't. Yeah, there's a big difference between having something like this be a vocation and having it be something that you do on the side because you just like the idea and that kind of stuff. Like, and all of it is okay, you know. Yeah, there's no part of that. Even if you're just doing it to put on your reference,
Yeah.
that is fine. That is okay. I did
Yeah.
an internship last summer to put on my reference. Like, you know, it's all
Yeah.
good.
I think that too. Like, it's okay to be a student representative because it gives you some working skills that you can take
Yeah.
into a career and experience. Like, you might have experience in running or chairing a meeting from being a student representative. Now you go into the workforce and you know how to do that. So it's completely
Yeah.
fine to come into it as another job, that just because some of us are a bit more passionate, but it
And
leads to the
do
burnout.
because yeah, I actually learn the most, I think, from people who are new sometimes because they have the new ideas and the new ways of thinking about things, and we can get stuck in a rut sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyway.
I think we've done well with our time. We've had a lot of tangents. I think I might have to write a summary just because of, like, for myself, that I might put on the website of like, this is what we sort of discussed and people brought up in the chat that it's really important to us. But does anyone want to bring up anything else when we've got 3 minutes left? Don't want to keep people any longer than that because hour and a half is a long time for people.
I just wanted to thank everyone for hosting this and inviting me. I thought it was really great to interface with all of you people, and I'm definitely keen for any future events.
Yeah, working on that. With the new coordinator coming in, we're sort of trying to figure out what future sessions will be. So if you have any suggestions or interests in anything, please email SVA and just sort of give us some ideas of what you need. That's what these network groups are here for. We need to help you. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Lisa. You do amazing. And thank you to the other people that were speaking as well.
Thank you both so much.
It's a really good session.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, as well.
Have a good rest of your day. I don't know what time it is for everyone. Either have lunch or have a coffee. But thank you. Bye.